Good morning, good morning. Merry Christmas. Today is Thursday, evidently December 25th, 2025. Getting down to the wire here. Like I said, I'll be rebooting my channel, and this is going to be a small, more or less trivial kind of entry into what's going on concerning, I'll call it the perceived power of explanation. And when I was marinating on this topic, I think of it in two avenues. And it really kind of depends on how you were taught to handle disrespect or things that bother you. All right. And this video hopefully is not going to be too long. I'll keep it condensed. I tried to do it at an earlier time, but had some technical complications. But nonetheless, if I didn't already say, Merry Christmas. And even if you don't celebrate or really sponsor the holiday, you can still impart kind of a joyful sense of gratitude on yourself. I don't care if it's just you and your cat, you and your dog, you and your musical instrument, you and your shadow work, whatever you're into. If you have loved ones close by, just reach out. You don't have to go over and beyond, but hopefully that will connect to what I'm about to tell you. So I think of it in two avenues. If you're a real, I'll just say traditional person. Tradition in this context means education. You were taught to, I'm not trying to insult anyone, but basically you were taught to take shit in the name of, getting along and service and, all of these kind of values that are presented as virtues, but in the long term, if you don't learn the other side of them, they'll turn you into a doormat, right? And it kind of feeds into the corporate structure, which literally translates to something being of death, like not alive, not vital. Anyway, so this person, when they explain things, they tend to use more words up until a certain point. So let's put a pin in that. So the first type of person who explains themselves, they use many words. Okay, now let's go to the other side of the tracks. And the person who, maybe they've been more privy or exposed to confrontation or more of a, you could even say competitive environment. So the way that they explain themselves is usually through mobility or action. Doesn't always mean fighting. It just means they're a little more lively when it comes to words. And I'd be willing to wager that a large part of their programming is almost seasoned with the idea that if somebody speaks to them with a lot of words, they're either A, trying to sound smarter than them and trying to make them feel small, or B, they're trying to trick them, which is kind of the same technique. So they have a predisposition to deflect if somebody's saying something. And the real fucked up part about this distortion is the person on the traditional side could actually be genuine in what they're trying to explain, but because of their predisposition and they think somebody's trying to run one over on them, it creates this barrier. Meanwhile, the person who moves with mobility, they may be a little louder, they may be more confrontational, and they may be just as if not more intelligent than the traditional person, but their expression comes down a different street. Meanwhile, that person on the, good side, so to speak, they could have the predisposition to look down on people who don't know how to explain themselves. Granted, you need a balance of both. So that's kind of the runway into what I kind of want to centralize on, all right? Explanation isn't power. You'll find tons of these AI videos with, all of this, you said nothing, this whole chosen one type of narrative where everybody walking around is a chosen one and all this and that. And I don't like to use that term because I don't think that it operates that way, but that's just my opinion. But both people come to a point. Let's go back to our first character. The first person, I said they explain themselves with words up to a point. That point is usually defined by them finding their talent, their passion, or something that they can cultivate. It could even be a job or like a certain career path. If that person doesn't diversify their experiences, what does that mean? All right, so if they go through high school and they do nothing but they just sit in the front row, they're high-fiving the teacher, they don't do any sports, they don't do any clubs, they don't really go out like that. Super smart, academically advanced, so naturally people know them as far as persona, but they don't have any skills from another web. You know what I mean? They're just straight school. Later on, when it's time to handle certain situations, they will have this opinion that because they are supremely educated and have a mastery of words and know how to, I'm being facetious obviously, but they know how to qualifying what they're saying by making everything seem perfect and symmetrical when they talk, and this whole type of polished, prude narrative. They feel that that's power, but they don't realize that not only their peers but people who don't think like them can see through that. So this creates it's really a recipe for a selfish person. And if that's not treated or even confronted or even acknowledged, worst case scenario, that person could grow into like a very narcissistic type of spirit, because that's how that formula starts. Their predisposition to, and it's not even that these people are smart, it's just their style of how they became an adolescent and an adult usually relies heavy on education. And you'll find this in many races, but I kind of want to touch on that in another video. I won't go down that street today. But meanwhile, the person who can kind of balance, I guess, their vocabulary, their lexicon, their way of speaking, but also be able to integrate their human experiences, empathy, selective vulnerability, if you will, socialization, humor. The more that they're able to combine these two worlds, the alchemy that takes place makes them a person who doesn't have to explain. And that's kind of the pursuit that you want to start to initiate inside. Easy to talk about, but much easier said than done. And it's never finished. It's kind of a daily essential class that you're in. And it's not pass or fail. It's grow or don't grow. You understand? So even if you don't grow, you're just repeating it. It's not really an onwards type thing. It's like a consistent class. You have to learn to blend your competency, which is measured through your words, your skills, whatever you're proficient at, with your character, right? And that becomes your inherent outward explanation. Okay? And for people on the other side of the tracks, I'm getting straight to the end now, who feel that words are somehow used to trick you, that's a correct sentiment. But at some point, you got to understand that you also are charged with using your experiences to be able to express yourself in a way that doesn't confront everything as if it's a threat or some type of opposition, because that'll keep you small as well. Both are kind of two extremes. So in a future like series, I'm gonna talk about why there's so much distortion between I'd say millennials and their parents, in this day and age because of the dynamic we just talked about. Okay, certain people, they feel that because they learn things a certain way and because of their age might surpass yours, obviously being your parent, then they're kind of superior in that sense. Not every parent is like that, but as you grow, especially as you grow into the authentic you, I'm mainly speaking to millennials and really Gen Z as well, then you're emerging out of that cocoon. It may shake up some things that they thought they had under wraps. Okay, and that's all I'm saying. It's not a reason to disconnect or not love, but we are going to speak about how different patterns can emerge and how some of us can help each other navigate those. So again, Merry Christmas, and I'll see y'all in the next video.